So pretty much like what I have written down, where like people do it mainly. I always knew for religious beliefs. So it depends on like what kind of religion you have, but people could just do it purely off of religious beliefs. The weight loss, metabolic health, and then I guess like I don't know if it would be categorized in metabolic health, but like cellular restoration type deals. So that's like your hair, nails, skin, bones, and from the claims, I mean, it sounds like the best thing ever because you're like, oh, if I just don't eat from this, I think it would be like 10 to 2, I guess is like a normal way to people start a fast, like 10 p.m. You have your last meal and then you don't eat again until 2 p.m. the next day. So you are sleeping through a chunk of that, and fasting. And then like you said, you're not taking in any actual calories. Most people just do water. Some people say, coffee's fine or even I think like a diet soda or something along the lines of that, but I think that's kind of stretching it. But the other thing too is I think, or I had read that how long the fast is dictates like what you're gonna get in terms of like the results or rewards.
Yeah,
so I think it's like the shorter the fast, it's going right for body comp, and then the longer the fast is when you kind of get those cellular metabolic restoration type things. So for you doing the research, like, do you think that like what is true versus what is not true, or maybe what's like overdone? What would your take on that be?
Yeah, I'd say most of it's overdone. So the issue you have is a lot of the studies are done on mice, and then people are kind of taking those results and pushing them over to human beings, which, of course,
we're not rats?
We're not rats.
Are you sure?
I'm positive on that one.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
This isn't the Matrix?
So a lot of people kind of extrapolate data from research that was done on mice and say, oh, this is really awesome, because there are a lot of research experiments done where there's a lot of awesome effects on fasting for mice, and they're just extrapolating, cool, that applies to humans, which unfortunately doesn't really work that way. So you got that going on. A lot of the claims have to do with growth hormone increases. What Joe was just kind of talking with cellular restoration, which is kind of, autophagy?
Yeah.
There's like 1,000 ways to pronounce it.
I used to say like autophagy in my anatomy class.
There's like 1,000 ways to pronounce that.
Yeah.
But that's more so in some longer fasts. So that's more so like 24-hour to 48-hour fast, which I don't know anyone that's ever done that, and I don't think too many people that are like doing their intermittent fasting are actually going for that long a period of time. And to have research on that to say that that's actually happening in the body is also kind of sketch. It's really hard to nail that one down. So to like definitively claim these things are happening, I would not say that. To definitively claim that it's like a good weight loss intervention, I would be comfortable saying that.
So what makes it a good weight loss intervention in your opinion, and scrap all the other stuff?
So I think it's just adherence. Any good weight loss intervention just comes down, will the person actually do it? They're all just different ways to create a caloric deficit. So there's nothing fancy going on with all the different diets that are out there. It's all just different strategies to try and create a caloric deficit, and then try and get someone convinced that yes, they can do this. And with intermittent fasting, once you get over those first initial weeks, the initial fast is going to be a little weird, but once you get over that, you'll stop feeling as hungry during that fasting period, and then you can be a bit more chill in the time that you do have to eat. So I think people enjoy that instead of worrying throughout the day, okay, I have to space this out, this meal here, this meal here, this meal here, and it's all small meals and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like people can adhere to this better when they can just kind of do what they want in the time they have to eat. And as soon as they get used to the fast, it no longer is like a difficult task to kind of do the fast.
So my one question I have is, because they're on a reduced window of eating, does that typically make people automatically reduce their calorie consumption because they just don't have as much time to eat?
Yeah.
Like, so where they just maybe can't eat as much? Because like if I try to eat 4,000 calories, I mean I feel like I could do it, but I don't actually know. If I only had 4 to 6 hours to eat, would I just consume all those calories? Or would I just be like, nah, like I'm full, and that maybe was like, that's automatically putting me into that deficit.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So that's a big thing there. With that fast, you're already going to have that kind of reduced appetite, and then you're also going to have so much time to kind of get in your calories, which is why you can kind of do what you want. Because you'd have to be really trying to get those, 4,000, 5,000 calories in when you only have, 4 to 6 hours to work with. So that's why people can kind of chill out on it, and they'll still be in a caloric deficit at the end of the day.
Yeah, and some of the things which you and I know are I think BS is they were talking about how a lot of them were saying how like sweeteners affect an insulin response, and now we know that like that doesn't or artificial sweeteners like invoke some sort of insulin response. We're talking about fasting and insulin levels, and like you were saying, the hormone levels and all that kind of stuff, where that isn't the case. So I'm like, listen to these big influencers talk about how like you got to do it this way. So some of that is just like you want to make sure you fact check that kind of stuff because if you're drinking a diet soda, there's no research that can really support the fact that there's insulin spiking. And even long term, we don't know the effects of artificial sweeteners. And there's a lot of people out there who are swearing by it. It's like the devil and you're going to die from that kind of stuff. So just kind of like listen to what they're saying and take it like a grain of salt and kind of do your research. The other thing was the longer you fast, the more sharp you become. And your brain magically grows and you're like just in super focused like Adderall mode. What do you think about that?
So that's kind of in response to people go back to like evolutionary responses in terms of releasing norepinephrine, epinephrine in response to not having calories in or energy in. And I think that's fine. How much of a response you're going to have from that?
Yeah.
I don't know. And
do you think that would like over time would decrease like as you get used to it, or do you think your body will always have that response?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm just wondering.
Yeah,
I don't know the answer.
On that.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, you'd probably be placebo affecting yourself on that front if you go into the diet expecting probably going to sharpen up. You're probably going to sharpen up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you take that pill and they're like, oh, this is gonna make you focus more, and you're like, whoa, yeah, felt that. What about caffeine boosts fat loss?
Caffeine boosts fat loss?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So boosts fat loss. I'm not sure if I'd use that phrasing exactly, but it's definitely a helpful weight loss supplement. So caffeine can help with satiation in terms of your appetite. So if you feel your stomach kind of lock up after consuming caffeine, that's kind of what's going on with that. Some people get adverse effects where they'll kind of feel like they've got nausea or diarrhea, stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of people just get a satiation effect from that. And then the other cool thing with caffeine is it'll also kind of mobilize fat into your bloodstream. So it'll break down some fat and mobilize it into your bloodstream, and then you'll be able to use that for energy, which is
cool. Reason I bring that up is just because a lot of people, when they fast, they do drink black coffee. And yet again, we're talking about, caloric deficit or losing weight. So just something to pay attention to, or for anybody who's actually just trying to lose weight. If you're cool with caffeine and you're trying to reach that goal, could be something to think about and consider. Now, the other thing I've been reading about was, and correct me if I'm wrong, because Matt he actually is doing our weight loss program. We have a weight loss program for the Iron Lions, so he's kind of been running that and going live with them weekly and putting out tons of information on this. But I think it's the thermogenic effect with calories, right? Now, I think the research says now that the bigger the meal, the higher that becomes.
Yeah. So
versus like smaller meals throughout the day.
Yeah, the thermogenic response in terms of food, the bigger the calories for that meal, the bigger response you're going to get.
So that's just kind of saying like with fasting, it would make sense because if you're having a huge meal versus like 6 meals a day, smaller meals, you're going to kind of get that big, energy expenditure to like break all that down. So that's kind of, I guess our overall take. I think it depends on your goal with fasting, if it's in your religious beliefs, or if you're just going to try something new and stick to it, like that's cool. Now, the big question for me and us strength sport people is, would it work for someone in strength training? And if you were to do intermittent fasting while you're on a strength training program, how would that affect your training, or when should you train, or kind of like what would be the involvement with that?
So I think the big thing with that would be timing of your training. So training might not be, its most efficient while you're doing that fasted state. And then since you're also going to be eating in a smaller time frame, figuring out when you're going to eat and then be fueled up to go train is going to be a bit more tricky. and it's also going to limit you to where you're now working out always in the evening. So any session that has to happen outside of that might not be, the most efficient that it could be. I think that'd be my main concern with it.
Yeah, and then you got to deal with that shorter time. You got to deal with digestion, and it's like, it depends, I guess, because if you eat a meal at like 10 p.m. and you have energy that'll probably sustain longer to do in the morning, but then if you train, you're not even going to take in any calories.
Yeah.
It's like, that just sucks. Nobody wants to be like training hard and then you can't even eat anything after that. But yeah, man. So like, any other overall things with fasting you want to break down for everybody?
I think that's, pretty much covering it. The big thing is it's just a weight loss intervention. I wouldn't look at it so much as having, unique benefits compared to any other weight loss intervention out there. And I think that's, what a lot of fitness influencers try and sell it on, is not only are you getting, improved weight loss, you're going to be this fat burning machine, but you're also going to get this growth hormone response. You're going to be fighting cancer, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So they'll kind of pitch all of that in addition to the weight loss response. And I'd say if you're going to go into this, just go into it with the thought process that this is just for weight loss. It's probably, or not probably not, but it's not been proven yet that it's going to have all those additional bonuses.
Is there